you got to be ready at all times. Amen. Now, when she told me last week, she said, "You remember you got to teach, right?" I said, "Uh-oh," because I got sidetracked. But that's all right. God's going to do what God's going to do. Amen. I'll be honest, this has been a tough week. We thought that we was on the downhill slide of her foot. And last week, when she went back to her doctor here, he said, something still ain't right. He said, so I want to send you to a specialist. And he said, but he's in Huntsville. Of course, she come home and told me, I said, Huntsville? I'm sorry. What is in Huntsville? I said, other than prison systems. I said, can't we go to Tyler? She said, well, this is somebody that he has used for many years and he trusts. And all this doctor does is ankles. That's it. So we went down Monday and I figured they was going to put her back in a walking boot or something like that. And he says, no, you need surgery. She says, but why? He said, because you have a 75% tear in your ligament. She said, well, do I have to have surgery? He said, no, you don't have to. You can live the rest of your life just like you are. He said, but every time you step on something uneven or a minor hole, that you will re-sprain it. Of course, if you know Pastor Amanda, she hates surgery. She'd rather take a whooping. She was just nervous in there. I said, look, it'll be all right. We'll do it. We'll get it done. Get it over with. So we went back today. And, of course, they had to do the pre-op. And so while we were in there, that girl come in and Pastor Amanda, she's so fearful when it comes to stuff like this. And it's comical, but it's really not. And so they did everything they needed to do, and we was fixing to leave, and the doctor come in. He says, no, wait a minute, you can't leave yet. We got to make a cast. Got to put a cast on your foot. She said, a cast? She said, I thought I was having surgery. She says, no, we got to cast your foot for the brace, a leather brace that we've got to have made after the surgery. So that nurse come in. If you ever seen a cast made, they wrap it and they wet it and it hardens. And, of course, whatever they done, it hardened within probably 5 minutes. And then she got out that rotor zip, is what I call it. It's really not. And to cut it off, and her eyes got about that big around. She says, what are you doing? Well, we got to cut it off, and that way we can mold, the brace out of it. And she says, look, it won't hurt you. It doesn't turn, because it looks like a saw blade. She said, but it doesn't turn. It just vibrates. And, of course, they had put a metal strip inside that they used as the guide. By the time she started to touch her foot, she moved her foot. And the girl said, don't move your foot. Cut it off, and of course the whole time she's just paranoid. She's tensed up. She's holding the side of the chair, just tensed up. And I know that we allow the enemy and fear to get in our heads. And when it happens, it changes everything. But what I wanted to talk to you about tonight was, are we giving God our very best? When we allow the enemy to creep in and change our way of thinking, change the way that we act, change the way that we speak, are we truly giving God our very best? We know the Word says that life and death is in the power of the tongue. How many times have we destroyed or torn down someone by the words that we speak? Or the tone that we speak in. And I used to be very bad about it. That when I'd go to say something, it would come out wrong. It was the right words, the words I wanted to use, but it was the tone that I used with it. Amen? And so I knew then that I had to change. And I began to change and watch how I spoke to people. And especially at home. And I wasn't always trying to be harsh with my words. It just come out that way. So I asked myself the question today, am I giving God my very best? We was coming back. And I don't know why, but the thought crossed my mind. I got to go to my text right quick. How many of you text yourself? Am I the only one that does? Oh, I do it all the time. You didn't know you could text yourself? Oh, yeah. All you got to do is store your own phone number in your own phone. But I want you to think about something. And I title this, if you want to call it that, Goodwill or Name Brand. Look, I ain't picking on none of y'all to go to Goodwill. Because when we was talking about it earlier today, she looked right at me. She says, well, I like Goodwill. I said, well, I'm not saying that it's bad. But let's look at it this way. You go to Bell's, JCPenney's, even Walmart, you know what you're going to get. You know the brands that they sell. You know the quality of that brand. When you go to Goodwill, you don't know what's on the shelf or hanging on that rack. You don't know the condition of it. Say it again. Our hood's been on. So you're taking a chance when you go in there of finding something that you like, something that fits you, that may look good on you, but you're taking that chance. Now, if you go to Bell's, Walmart, anywhere else, odds are they're going to have your size, something that will fit you, something that you will like, and so you know what you're getting. So, as I began to think about this, I thought of it like this. How do we give God our very best? Are we giving Him Goodwill quality versus name brand? In other words, is what you're giving God quality? Or is it whatever we can find for the day? Are you willing just to give Him just a little bit today because that's all I can muster up? Or that's all that I have available today? Are you willing to give Him quality that He knows that is inside of us? Look, I had to check myself today. Because I'll be honest, through the holidays, I did not like Christmas. I didn't. Why? It didn't have nothing to do with Jesus. But during the Christmas holidays is when I lost my dad. And it always hits me every year. And I struggle with it every year. Because Dad loved Christmas. He always did Christmas lights and you know, he was always that cheerful, that festive person. And I think that's why I got Amanda in my life, because she took the place of it, I guarantee you. She would do Christmas probably 11 months out of the year. And the only reason why she wouldn't do it the 12 is so she could clean up and get ready to redecorate. And she don't do nothing outside. That's all left up to me. But the last several years, and probably a little longer than that, I got to where I didn't even decorate outside anymore. When we first got Joshua, I always done it. Oh, I went all out. I had all the blow-ups in the yard, lights all around the house, down the sidewalk, everything. And then I just quit. Well, this year, I don't know, I just kind of got right back in the mood of it. I asked her, I said, we're going to hang lights this year? She says, do they still work? Because I hadn't hung them in several years. I said, well, I don't know. So I went and dug it. When I dug out all of our Christmas tree stuff and all of our inside stuff, I began to pull out the Christmas lights. My staple gun didn't even work no more. Been so long since I used it, I guess. Because it's the one I always kept with the Christmas decoration. I went and plugged it in and hit the trigger and it went poof. So I dug the staple out and done it again. It wouldn't even shoot the staple out. So I began to get in the Christmas spirit. And I called her, I messaged her, she was still at work. I said, we need some more outside Christmas decorations. She said, well, all you ever put up anymore is just lights, maybe. That's what I guess I'm feeling in the Christmassy spirit. I said, we need more outside. She said, well, go get it. Of course I didn't, because then I wanted to spend the money. But what I'm saying is that the way we treat God? We're willing to just hang enough lights for somebody can see, but we don't want to go all out. Any of y'all ever been by Rick and Becky's house during Christmas? It's like Winter Wonderland on Brookview. I haven't seen it this year. The times I've been over, it's been in the daylight, so I haven't got to see what it looks like this year. But Rick absolutely loves decorating. Loves it. He'd have 6 or 8 or more of the big blow-ups out in the yard and lights all over the house. I mean, look, I would hang them across the front, but I wasn't climbing on the roof and doing the outline. That's Rick. You walk into their house and it's like walking into Macy's Christmas department. Santa Claus is everywhere. I mean, they love it. And they put everything they have into it. So, do we do that with God? Are we willing to put everything that we have into it? Give Him our very best. Not just what we can get for the day. The Word tells us in 2 Timothy 2:15. It says, be diligent to present yourself approved to God, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Give Him your very best. Not just enough to get by. So we can do just enough to get by and still make heaven. But is that what God wants from us? Or does He want you to put out your very best? Sometimes our very best is still not going to be enough. We're going to fall short of the glory of God. We all know that. We all know we're going to stumble. We're going to fall. We're not going to complete every task as we should. But what do? Do we give it our very best? Do we put out 100% no matter what? See, when I become full-time, I sit down in that office, and me and Brother Jerry and Sister Vicki, we talked about it a little bit. I sat down in that office and I'd prepare sermons and I'd read my word, I'd read a book. I had Christian music going, and after, I'm going to say a week, I sat there at the desk like this. What do I do? What do I do? Because I've used these for so many years. My whole adult life, I have used my hands to provide. And so I found myself bored. Look, it happens. It's a different type of job. You're not out there hustling all day long. And in my case, I was always working, plus I was always managing people. So I always had something to do at all times. And when you're on call 24/7 for as many years as I was, you even tailor your activities. Everything you do is tailored around being on call. We wouldn't even run to Tyler because I was afraid I'd get called out. We wouldn't just jump in the car and go on a trip, go to Dallas or anywhere, because I knew I was always on call. And so I sat down in that office and I kept thinking, how do pastors do this? What do they do every day? Because at the time we didn't have nobody in the hospital. And it wasn't just a matter of, I'm going to say a couple of days with 2 or 3 in the hospital. So I jumped at the chance, jumped in the truck and took off to Tyler to go see him. But on the way to Tyler that first time, I thought, is this the best I can give God? Of course, now Sister Sandra, and she ain't in here because I was sure fixing to pick on her. She gave me a honey-do list for the church. You name it, it's on that list. Things that is way above my pay grade. But I began to think about it. Am I giving God my very best? At the time, I could say I wasn't, because I didn't know how anymore. Because I wasn't at work 10, 12 hours a day and part-time at the church. Now I was full-time at the church, and I wasn't even part-time in Grapeland no more. So I didn't know how to act. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to be me. I didn't know how to be a full-time pastor. And so I began to pray and tell God, God, you show me. Show me, what do I need to do? What am I not doing? Where am I failing? How do I be the man of God and the pastor that you called me to be? And let me tell you, when I asked the question, it was like a book just opened. I began to study. And I'm not talking about just going in and preparing for a sermon. I'm talking about going in and truly studying. And I'd find myself several hours later, and I was sitting there still studying. Half of my day was already gone. And of course, the phone would ring or something, and I'd go and do this or I'd do that. But I began to try to figure out how to give God my very best. What is standing in the way of me giving God my very best? You know what I realized at home was? Called Dish Network. TV. I began to find out that I was spending more time watching TV than I was in here. Now, when I come here, it wasn't a problem. But at home, I had a problem. It wasn't this. Ma'am, can you quieten your bells? And y'all had to sit beside her. But I began to examine every aspect of my life. And asking the question, was I giving my very best? Me and Brother Larry has had some conversations over the last several months, of things that we're trying to implement and different things. The first of the year, we always have our leadership meeting, and that's where we kind of begin to reiterate this or that and make sure everybody's still on the same path and going in the same direction. And then we, give the vision to the church to make sure that everybody is on board, in the direction that we're going. Because what happens is if you're not going in the same direction, then you're fighting against one another. You're disrupting the flow. And so I had to ask myself, am I disrupting the flow? And I'm not talking about here. I'm talking about between me and God. And he began to point out things. I couldn't wait for the day to retire because I kept thinking, Amanda's got to get up and go to work. Josh has got to get up and go to school. I'm going to be home all by myself, and I'm going to sleep late. No, it don't happen. First off, when you got an 11-year-old running through the house, it ain't peaceful anyway. But I couldn't wait to sleep in that first morning. When their alarm went off, of course, she got up, she snuck out of the bedroom, all nice and quiet, closed the door so they wouldn't disturb me. And I always left the house about 5 minutes till 7. At 5 minutes till 7, I was sitting up in the bed, wide awake. So I got to where I could sleep till a little bit after 7. Then I got to the point where I was sleeping till 9. The first morning I slept till 9 and I woke up, I was mad at myself because I done slept so long. Because in our home, growing up, if you slept late, you done wasted the day away. That's the way Daddy raised us. And so I woke up mad at myself, and I spent the rest of the day mad because I slept late. And so I began to continue to ask the question, and this ain't that was just, I guess, a freebie about sleep. What? Am I giving God everything that I can? Are you giving God everything you can? Look, I know you work. Your mom's got children to take care of, clothes to wash, meals to cook. But are we giving God our very best at all times? Are we giving God what He deserves? Because see, when we go into Bells or J.C. Penney's, we have a standard of what we're going to get out of there. Does God have a standard for us? Yes, He does. Does God expect that standard? Yes, He does. Are we giving Him enough to fulfill that standard? I heard it. I don't know who said it, but somebody said probably not. Probably not. Including you, Pastor. That's why I had to question myself. Are we giving God our very best? I'm going to use Mimi for a minute. I've been looking at her because I knew this was coming. The drama team, she expects excellent out of all of those that are on the drama team. The praise team, Pastor Amanda, look, she's strict. And she expects excellence. Out of our leadership, we expect excellence. We expect you to give 100% to your ministry. But if we take all of that to the side, because if you look at the drama team, their performance that they did up here Sunday was great. Did they have some flaws in there? Maybe you can probably tell you, yeah, but we didn't see it. I don't know your flaws. You don't know mine. But the Father can see it. That's right. Because He knows how it's supposed to be. He knows how it's supposed to be laid out. Just like Mimi, she knew what she wanted up here. Brother Charles works with the youth band down there. Look, they're all in training, so he understands there's some bumps in them roads. But does that change the expectation that He wants? No. God understands there's some bumps in our road coming. God has prepared us for them bumps, for them holes that's in the road. He knows that we're going to turn left sometimes when we should have turned right. He already knows, but He's prepared us for it. Problem is when you turn left instead of right, do you keep going left? Think about it. How many times do we go down the same old road over and over and over? By not giving God our very best, that's where we keep going. We continue to repeat history. Our past continues to direct our future when we're not willing to give God our very best. And so I challenge you to begin to give God more than what you are now and see what happens. Because I promise you that if you will truly get plugged in, get rooted and grounded, the life that you can live is wonderful. It doesn't mean the enemy's not going to attack. Because he will. And probably a little bit harder. But you'll know how to handle him. You'll know how to face him when he comes. It's just like with your children. You know that if they have and I'm going to use Joshua for a minute. We know Joshua has issues with certain things in life. Josh doesn't do well with change. But we've learned over 11 years how to deal with it and how to direct him as a change is coming. So a lot of times he doesn't realize that change has happened until after it's done happening. Sometimes God has to direct us in the same way. Sister Dot told me tonight, well, actually, Sister Dot and Sister Tammy both got on me pretty good tonight. Oh, yeah. And the bad thing is that they did it individually, so I got it twice. The offering she took up tonight, I have fought against since Monday. The church paying for any of the medical bills, I have fought against since Monday. Come in tonight, and I'd walk downstairs, and Sister Tammy come by my office, and she stepped in, and she said, "We will pay for it." I said, "No." And I'm going to pour out my heart to you. I feel guilty. Why I do, I don't know. But I do. And I understand that and it's what Sister Dot says, the church wanted full-time pastor and they got it. It's their place and our place to take care of you. But I've worked my whole life to have everything that I have. I've worked hard. And so now that I'm not out there breaking my back, I feel guilty. Sister Dot told me, she says, it's our place to take care of y'all. But also go back to when we took this church over. Now, I'm just going to put it out there. This church had been moneyed to death. The people had been moneyed to death. That every time that there was a need or anytime there was a want, let me put it that way, their hands was out. And I've been told that there would be envelopes placed on the altar with financial figures on them, and he expected them to be filled by the end of service. And you ask anybody, especially that's been with us all these years, look, it's between you and God what you do financially for God. I don't get up here and I don't beg. I don't try to make you feel guilty because that ain't my place. But it's another reason why I have a hard time receiving church. Because I know how the people was done with the last pastor that was in here. And I always said I would never allow that to happen again. And so when they want to take up an offering, that's why I leave the building or go outside. Because I don't like for them to do it. But I also know that I can't fight it forever. And I learned tonight that there's two women that don't have no problems cornering me and telling me so. But on the other side of that, I thank the church from the bottom of my heart that y'all do take care of us. Myself and Pastor Ben and Josh as well. And I'm very humbled because of it. And so thank you very much. And for that, I do give God my very best. Because that's what God expects from me. And so I challenge you to give Him your very best in the days to come. Let's end 2019 on a good note. And let's start 2020 with a bang. Let's make the devil and the enemy tremble every morning when you wake up and you place your feet on the ground. Let him know that you are awake and you are ready to go to battle. You no longer are we going to be his pawn. We're going to wake up every morning and we're going to let him know who we are, that we are a child of God, bought and paid for. Amen? Amen. I'm fixing to dismiss because I know some of y'all want some Santa pictures. I know some of y'all want some cookies and some juice. But just remember when you go downstairs, the kids are down there. And this is for them. So, look, some of you grown kids don't go down there pushing and shoving and elbowing to get to Santa Claus. Amen? Stand to your feet.